of $700 million. One word. I know what you're thinking. Year-old milkshake machine salesman with 16 at an annual revenue.
Hi, June.
Ray, how's it going down?
Good.
6 mixer.
McDonald's. Wanted something. That's one of my...
Before the Golden Arches became a global icon, before billions were served every single day, there was just one man, and a vision no one believed in. This is The Founder, a powerful film based on a true story, a story of persistence, ambition, and the controversial path to success. Ray Kroc wasn't born a billionaire. At 52, he was a struggling milkshake machine salesman with nothing but rejection in his rearview mirror. But what he found in a small California kitchen would become one of the greatest business stories in history. From business inspiration to the motivation of life, this movie isn't just about burgers, it's about bold decisions, sacrifice, and the price of the American dream. If you've ever felt stuck, unheard, or underestimated, this story is your wake-up call. Welcome to the rise of McDonald's. Welcome to The Founder. The story begins with Ray Kroc offering a milkshake machine. He gave a short presentation to restaurant owners to make their work easier and make their production more efficient. Ray explains that the meaning of the terms chicken and egg is the same as supply and demand. There is no chicken without eggs, and there is no egg without chicken. The two cannot be separated. The more eggs, the more chickens will be born, and the more chickens, the more eggs will be born. He said that if the restaurant owner bought 5 milk mixer machines from him, then he could make milk very quickly and briefly. Then people would not have to wait long anymore. Finally, production can increase, so market or buyer demand will also increase. But Ray's offer was rejected, and Ray said that the quiet restaurant would remain quiet if he did not speed up production. Ray went out and took the machine to his car. Ray then ordered food while waiting in his car. And Ray was annoyed because the food he ordered never arrived, because the order had not been ready for 20 minutes. Finally, Ray went to another restaurant and the same thing happened. His fast food machine offer was also rejected. Then again, Ray ordered food at a nearby restaurant, and again his order took a long time to arrive. And when it arrived, it turned out the order was wrong. Ray, who ordered barbecue, was given another menu. Ray was disappointed and immediately left. Long story short, at a hotel where Ray was staying, Ray played a motivational tape that he probably listened every day. And that night he listened again, while continuing to ponder. The voice on the tape says that the person with teeth will beat the person with talent, defeating educated people and even defeating geniuses. The formula is that if we change our thoughts, then our lives will also change. While sleeping, Ray continued to ponder that sentence. Long story short, the morning was back to normal, where Ray offered his fast food machine but was rejected again. Then Ray called his office and asked for a list of new restaurants for him to visit. And his secretary, named June Martino, said that there was a restaurant that ordered 6 mixer machines at once. Ray was immediately shocked because so far it had been so difficult for him to sell just one. But how come there is a restaurant that orders 6 machines at once? Ray asked for the restaurant's phone number, and then he called the restaurant and...
Hello, Dick. This is Ray Kroc.
Ray then asked to be connected to the restaurant owner. But the person who received the call said that the restaurant owners were 2 people named Mac and Dick. Finally, Ray spoke to Dick, but Dick seemed really busy because he was flooded with orders. Well, Ray confirmed whether it was true that McDonald's ordered 6 machines, but Dick said it was wrong. McDonald's actually ordered 8 machines. Ray was surprised, and then asked for the address. Then when Ray looked at the address on the map, it turned out that McDonald's was very far away, in California. It is about 2,000 miles from Illinois. Then he immediately rushed there to deliver the machine. And during the trip, he couldn't contain his joy because it was a huge sale for him. Arriving there, Ray saw that this restaurant was very unique and different from the restaurants that had been there so far. But Ray still doesn't know how to eat without a plate and spoon. So he paid attention to the people there and followed their way of eating. Not long after, a sweeper came to clean up the trash in front of the restaurant and greeted Ray and asked how the burger tasted. Ray also said that it was the most delicious burger he had ever eaten. But when we looked closely, it turned out that the sweeper was the owner of McDonald's, whose name was Mac. If earlier it was Dick who received the phone call, this time it was his brother, Mac. They are two brothers. Well, then they got to know each other, and Mac invited Ray to tour his restaurant. Ray went around the restaurant and looked at all the conditions inside the restaurant.
Speed! That's the name of the game.
And it's crazy. One burger is ready in just 30 seconds. Mac said that the main concept of the restaurant is speed. Long story short, Ray was impressed and invited the two of them to have dinner together. Finally, they had dinner together, and Dick and Mac tell their story of building McDonald's from scratch. Initially, McDonald's was just like any other regular restaurant with a huge menu. But then Mac and Dick realized that the only things that were selling were three things: burgers, fries, and milkshakes. So they both decided to eliminate all other menus and only focus on selling those three menus. But it's not enough to stop there. Mac and Dick want to make a breakthrough that has never existed before in this world. That is speed. Finally, when the restaurant was at its busiest, they closed the restaurant for months just to change the way the kitchen operated. They also made a simulation on a tennis court, which was sketched the same as the kitchen location. And yes, the first system in the world was created, namely the fast food system. The food was served very fast. Well, to make a long story short, McDonald's fast food system became what it is today. So that's our story. That night, Ray couldn't sleep and felt that their idea was really good, and Ray thought of something. In the morning, Ray was waiting for the two of them. And when they just arrived, Ray conveyed his idea. And the idea is
Franchise. 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 Franchise.
But Dick said that they had tried before, but failed. Because the problem with franchising is that standardization cannot be controlled. There were 5 previous franchises, and all 5 were dirty, filthy, and even sold other menus besides the 3 mainstay menus from McDonald's, which in the end actually damaged McDonald's name, and they ended up closing their franchise. And now, Mac and Dick think that it's better to have one perfect restaurant than to have 50 restaurants that are all bad. A debate ensued between Ray and the two of them, and Ray also told them to recruit supervisors to oversee each franchise so that standardization would be maintained. But they still contradict each other. What I like about Mac and Dick is that even though they are both successful and Ray is a nobody, they still have an open mind and are willing to accept new ideas from other people. Ray then went home and found his wife, whose name was Ethel, and here an argument occurred. It could be said that Ray's finances were enough for retirement at that time, and his wife told him to retire, and it was time to enjoy the fruits of his labor so far. But Ray doesn't want to, and still has ambitions. His wife also said that,
"When's enough gonna be enough for you?"
Probably never.
Ray also said that he needs a wife who always supports him, and not just be like other people who always look down on him. Long story short, Ray managed to convince Mac and Dick. At first Dick doubted that Ray would betray him. But Mac ordered Ray to be bound with an official agreement in black and white, which means they can both rest easy because they are bound by law. After that, Ray mortgaged his house and invested in McDonald's by opening his first McDonald's franchise in Chicago. It was immediately crowded there, and Ray tried really hard to maintain the quality of McDonald's so that it remained exactly the same as the main branch. But Ray and Dick are arguing a lot now, because Ray's new ideas were always rejected by Dick. For example, cooperation with Coca-Cola, but Dick rejected it, and so on. Ray was angry and annoyed, but he could still accept Dick's decision. Because he understands that Dick once trusted other people, but instead his McDonald's franchise ended up in chaos. So now, Dick is more careful. Then, after the first branch of Ray's franchise was successful, Ray didn't stop there. His sales spirit continues to burn, and wherever he goes, he always offers his friends to invest in opening a new McDonald's franchise branch. As a result, within a month, Ray managed to open 3 franchise branches at once from his friend's investment. But after running for about a week, when Ray checked the condition of his friend's franchise, it was a mess. Dirty and not up to standard at all. Ray then got angry and decided to manage the franchise himself without investor interference. So, in essence, the investor only has the money, but the management is still in Ray's hands. Then one day, Ray was at the office, and there was a Jew named Leonard who was selling Bible books. Then Ray asked, "Why are you a Jew, selling a Catholic's book?" Then the Jewish salesman replied that he needed money. Well, from there, Ray recruited Leonard to be a supervisor, and it turned out to be successful. The supervisor's wife also helped her husband work to promote McDonald's by distributing candies with the McDonald's logo.
It's normally 10 and under.
Love it. Nice.
From there, Ray felt jealous looking at the couple. He saw that husband and wife could be united and support each other's work. Meanwhile, Ray feels that his wife at home does not support him. Ray also began to think that people who were religious were very suitable to be supervisors. Because if he obeys religion, then he will also obey the standards in his work. Finally, Ray has now started to change the way he recruits people. Ray no longer recruits just anyone, but now he visits churches, Jewish places of worship, and other religious places to make presentations and recruit employees there. There were so many people who joined, and it turned out to be successful. The people Ray recruited from religious backgrounds all did good work. Ray's franchise was a huge success, and all of McDonald's operational standards were maintained the same quality. Well, from there, Ray also learned that the key to success in running a business is good recruitment. And yes, it happened when Ray was offering his franchise business to a restaurant owner named Rolly Smith. Then he met a beautiful woman named Joan. The woman is good at playing the piano, and most importantly, the woman also has the same ambition as Ray, but unfortunately she is the wife of his prospective investor. And that night, Ray fell in love at first sight with the woman.
Every time it rains, pennies from heaven.
And long story short, Ray was having operational problems with his franchise. He ran out of funds. And after investigating, it turned out that the operational costs were much higher than the percentage of profit he got. Finally, Ray called Dick and asked for a renegotiation to increase Ray's profit from just 1.4% to 4%, but Dick refused. Because McDonald's itself only gets 0.5%, while Ray gets 1.4%. Mac and Dick felt that Ray had already gotten a huge amount, namely that he had gotten 3 times more than what Mac and Dick had gotten. Ray began to get frustrated because his loan from the bank had been in arrears for 3 months. So the point is, in a situation like this, Ray's franchise business is indeed successful. He has 5 McDonald's branches and all of them are busy, and the standards are maintained. The turnover is high, but when examined, it turns out that the expenses are also high, so it can be said that this business is not healthy. And when Ray was stressed, a consultant named Harry J. Sonneborn came and offered Ray a business overhaul. Harry then explained that McDonald's is not a restaurant business, but a property business. So, in the future, people who want to open a McDonald's franchise will pay the land and building rent up front to Ray. So that way, Ray will also get cash up front, and every year Ray will continue to get rent for the land and buildings too. So the concept was changed previously. Investors who wanted to open a McDonald's would look for their own land, or even open a McDonald's on their own land. But now, there's no need anymore. Ray has already prepared the land, so the investor just needs to give him money to build his McDonald's and pay the rent for the land to Ray. Finally, Ray agreed with the consultant's advice, and Ray started building a new company called Franchise Realty. This means a franchise-based property business. Generally, the property business concept is housing, apartments, office properties, and so on. Well, Ray's concept is a restaurant franchise. Isn't that crazy? Well, his new business was very successful, and the peak was when Ray bought the land where the first McDonald's restaurant was built, which was the land that Mac and Dick rented. Finally, it can be said that Mac and Dick no longer have full power over the ownership of their first McDonald's. Thus, Ray was free to change McDonald's standards from the original ones according to his wishes. He was free to collaborate with Coca-Cola, he could create new menus, and so on. In addition, because the cost or expense of the chiller or cold room to store real cow's milk was too high, Kroc changed from healthy real cow's milk to powdered milk. So McDonald's no longer needs to use a refrigerator to reduce electricity costs in order to gain greater profits. Maybe that's where McDonald's, which was originally a healthy fast food restaurant, turned into junk food. And what's worse is that Ray and Joan, the wife of one of his investors, are having an affair. And one night, when Ray was having dinner with his wife, Ray said that,
I want a divorce.
Finally, Ray divorced his wife, and as compensation he gave her his house, car, and all his possessions except his business. Long story short, Ray ends up having a complication with Mac and Dick. When they called, they argued and Ray wanted to cancel his contract and take over McDonald's alone. Hearing that, Mac was immediately angry and deeply disappointed. Because I really trusted Ray, but Ray betrayed me. Mac wants to take legal action against Ray, but Ray says that he will be the one to win. Ray said that
I'm national. You're fucking local.
because Mac was too angry, Mac's diabetes relapsed. Then he fell and fainted. And while at the hospital, Mac and Dick were filling in a crossword puzzle. Suddenly, Ray came to visit and brought flowers. But in the flower there was an envelope. Ray gave the envelope to Mac and Dick. Then they both opened the envelope and saw that the contents were blank check. Ray planned to pay whatever they were willing to pay to hand over the McDonald's to him, and Ray left. Long story short, Mac and Dick finally agreed to give up McDonald's because they felt that there was no way they could win against Ray. Because Ray's company is already big and spread everywhere, while Mac and Dick only have restaurants located in regional areas. Mac and Dick finally gave in and handed over the McDonald's they had started from the beginning, on condition of paying a fee of $2.7 million. And you will get 1% of McDonald's profits for life. And after everyone agreed and signed, Ray and Dick met in the toilet. And then they both chatted. And then Ray explained that McDonald's real strength wasn't in the system or anything else. So it's not the speed of the system, it's not the taste of the menu either, but the power is in the name. Yes, the McDonald's name is very strong.
It's the name. That glorious name, McDonald's. It sounds like America.
From the start, Ray could have copied McDonald's fast food system and opened his own restaurant. But he thought that no one would want to eat at a restaurant named Ray. But the restaurant called McDonald's has a really strong aura, different from the others. There is no need to name this burger or that burger, just the name McDonald's, and everyone will know that it is a sign of American glory. Dick then said that the first time Mac and Dick invited Ray to go inside McDonald's, it was a day of regret for both of them. They never thought that Ray would take over McDonald's from their own hands. Ray and Joan eventually get married and live together. Meanwhile, brothers Mac and Dick are now being pushed out of the McDonald's name they built themselves. At the end of the story, several important positions were held by Ray Kroc's trusted men. From this film, we can learn that The Founder is a stark reminder that greatness often starts with a dream, but it takes courage, consistency, and action to turn that dream into reality. Ray Kroc wasn't the smartest or most original, but he was relentless. That relentlessness changed the world. Let this story inspire you to recognize opportunity, stay resilient in failure, and believe in bold ideas. But never forget, true success isn't just what you build, it's how you build it, and who you become in the process. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Write a comment about your impression of this movie. Have a nice day. See you again, and don't forget to be happy.